Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming in. Yep. So yeah, I was saying. So we do have a couple of slides. I don't want you to go through a lot of slides. We'll mostly go through demos on how to install and how to use ReNgine on your workflow. So let's quickly go through a couple of slides that I already have, and then probably let me take this here. Yep. Yep. So before we begin, a quick introduction about me. As Ace already said, I'm Yogesh and I'm from Nepal. I am currently working as a research engineer for a company called TRJ Research and Development. And my research areas are focused on building solutions for crime and terror. We are currently working for a couple of customers where we work on something called Google of Crime and Terror. It's mostly an OSINT and a couple of interesting stuff. So if you are interested in working, we do have a couple of positions open on security research and cyber intelligence domain as well. So you can head over this to this link. And I also build and maintain ReEngine. That's something which I'm presenting today. And I've been a speaker at Black Hat, DEF CON, Cyber Week, and a couple of conferences in security. And I think that's pretty much about me. So let's move into what exactly is Recon. So if you guys are in security, if you guys have been doing a couple of stuff around penetration testing around web application, you know how important it's Recon, right? Because if you have a small target, I understand that Recon is not really important, but you have a huge target like Google, huge target like Facebook, even Tesla, and then now your Recon becomes very important because now you want to identify the attack surface. Where do you want to go and attack? And Recon is very important. And if you talk about what are the important stuff, what are the really important stuff that you need to be looking for when you do Recon, it's probably the first thing is subdomains. Because as I said, in targets like Google, Facebook, your subdomains are not just one or two subdomains. You have like thousands and thousands of subdomains, right? And then you also have endpoints. These are mostly from your webback URLs, and then you also have Ghost Spider, a couple of these tools that you use to gather the endpoints, right? So these endpoints you can use it to later classify them into your LFI, RFI patterns using something called GF. So these are the kind of things that you can do with endpoints. And you also have IP address and open ports, because when you go to attack any application, it's not just hello.admin.yogeshoja.com, right? It's also are there any services that are running? Is there any SQL service that's running that probably doesn't has any username and password? Is there any FTP that's running there and which doesn't has which has anonymous login open, right? So big, and IP address and open ports are also of concern for you. And then of course now with things like nuclei, guys at Project Discovery, they're doing a really good job in making something called nuclei, and it does do your vulnerability scan using your community powered templates, right? So you also want to find out that in your Recon. And also technology used in target, this is going to be super helpful for you, because suppose imagine you have a huge target like Tesla and you found out one particular vulnerability in one technology, consider PHP myadmin, okay? And now you're going to make sure that okay, that vulnerability doesn't lie across the entire domain. And then you want to make sure that that particular technology, whatever it's using, you don't want you want to make sure that it's not anywhere else, right? So that also is a part of your Recon. And of course you also do OSINT. So a lot of times when you do OSINT in web application penetration testing, it's probably you want to find out what kind of technology that a particular organization using, your employees, and then after that, their email addresses, their leaked password. These are going to be super helpful for you, because just imagine you landed up in a dashboard and you have absolutely nothing to do, right? So what is the next thing that you want to do? Probably go and gather the list of the employees email addresses, and then look for in the leak database. So these all are the things that you need to be looking for in the Recon. And and it was the story back in 2019, I guess. I was working as a penetration tester, and that was my day job. And I was also working as a part-time bug bounty hunter. And what I realized was a lot of these tools that were there in the market, they lacked what I call as a correlation. Because a lot of these tools, they used to give let's give an example. you have subfinder, you have nuclei, a lot of these tools, right? So either you need to pipe them to get some end result, that's one thing, or either a lot of these tools, what happens was they used to give you a list of subdomains in one file, a list of IP address, a list of ports, a list of vulnerabilities, and a list of endpoints in some other file. Unless you are really good at doing the file management, things were super difficult, right? So like suppose you want to find out, hey, I want to see the screenshot of one particular web page that has http status 200 and that also has admin in the page title, and I want it right now. And that was super difficult because unless you know how to do grep properly, it was very difficult, right? So that was one of the missing part, right? And what happened was a lot of these you also know the pain behind configuring the tools, and then the smaller settings, playing around with them, how difficult is it to probably a lot of times remembering those small stuff, right? So a lot of things that I was doing was repeated stuff, and I was like, I know how to develop things, so can I automate this everything? So my goal was to create a recon engine that does end-to-end reconnaissance, like from your subdomain gathering to finding out the vulnerabilities, and even probably do much more better than that, right? And then that was the product of ReNgine. And the other things that I wanted in my recon engine was the pipeline of recon, because not a lot of times all of your customers want you to do the pen testing the same way, or probably the recon same way. You want to do it a little different, right? So in those cases, I wanted to make sure that we have something called engines where you could choose the tools, where you could choose the configurations, you can define the scan engines, and then use that scan engine against multiple targets, right? So that's something. And the other thing was scheduler, because as I said, I had a day job. I was working as a penetration tester, and in the night I was doing the bug bounty hunting. What happens is that by the time I go back home and then I do the I wanted something like a scheduler so that when I was there in office, it schedules the recon when I'm not there. Okay, so it's something like, hey, I want to scan my particular target every 1 hour, or every 3 days, or every 1 week. And that scheduler was missing in a lot of these recon tools, right? So, and of course the other thing was the ability to run multiple scans in parallel. This was very important to me, because, and for you also it's going to be super important, because you don't just have one target when you want to do the recon, you have multiple of them, and the ability to run multiple of them in parallel is something very important. And that is the reason why, and these are the couple of things that I wanted from my recon engine. And before using ReNgine, were there any existing tools? Yes, absolutely. There were many good recon tools. Like suppose if ReNgine doesn't suit your need, you can definitely go for Recon FTW. That's really good. It's one of my favorite tools. You also have Ecopan and Asmodeus. So these tools were really good. But all of these tools, again, I said something that was missing was probably scheduling, your correlation, and a fancy UI, of course. Because see, I'm not a big fan of UI myself. I'm not a guy who does a lot of UI. I prefer to work in terminal. But what happens is that there are a few things. Like suppose when you do the correlation, that's when you need to use your what do you say, a web UI. Without the web UI, it's not really possible to have that correlation. And then so let's talk about the missing gaps. The first thing was the correlation, as I said, right? Like suppose now use any of the tools, any of the recon tools, and help me find out this. You need to find out the subdomain. Okay, you need to find out subdomain, all of these subdomains that uses Apache as a technology and that has HTTP status 200. It's going to be super difficult for you, right? And probably also like suppose filter out all the screenshots that you have gathered that has port number 22 open. Filter all the screenshots that has PHP might as a technology, and filter all subdomain that uses this particular IP address, because suppose you found one particular IP address that has port number some XYZ open. And what you want to do right now is that find out all the subdomain that uses that particular IP address. It's going to be super difficult unless you're really good at doing recon, right? And the other thing was the visualization. See guys, to be very honest, at a lot of time, what happens is that a really good visualization indicates how the recon data relates to each other, right? So let's talk about the subdomain. If you think on a normal recon, a very basic recon, you have subdomains, you have IP addresses, you have ports, and then let's try to build a good relationship between these recon data. So now your subdomain has an IP address and your IP has the open ports, right? It's not that the subdomain has open ports, it's the IP that has open ports. And then your open ports probably are going to be like uncommon open ports or something like that. And then you also have endpoints. Your subdomain has endpoints. Your endpoints are going to have your GF patterns, and your endpoints also are going to have your vulnerabilities, because endpoints is where your vulnerability lies. Now the thing is that, and also your OSINT. Now, the thing is that if you have a very good visualization, like suppose the one that you see on the right hand side, it's going to be super helpful for you if you could plot the graphs in the form of trees and just click on each of them and then get your recon into a visualized format. So that was something that was missing. And the other thing was data analysis. As I said, the first thing was, like suppose assume that you are performing the recon on a facebook.com, which approximately has 100,000 subdomains. Now you need to find out what's the interesting target for you. For you, interesting target could be admin.facebook.com. It could be dashboard.something.com. Okay, how long it's going to take you to find out that? It's going to be super difficult, right? And the other thing was the recon data changes. When I say about recon data changes, you also need, because a very good recon framework also needs to have how many endpoints or how many subdomains have been newly added since the last scan. Just consider you did one scan 1 month back, and then now you want to find out how many of the new subdomains were added, because in targets like facebook.com, subdomains are on a daily basis they're added, on a daily basis that decommissioned, right? So you also want to find out how the recon data is being changed. That was one of the missing gaps, which made me do that. So I'm not gonna do okay, let's talk about ReNgine features. So as I said, it does a very good recon. It has something called a configurable YAML based scan engines, where you can define what kind of tools that you want to use, your settings. You also have deep recon correlation, which you're going to see in a couple of minutes. And then we have powerful recon search query using natural language like operators. This is something very interesting, because what happens is, like let's talk about again, let's go back to tesla.com. Now tesla.com probably has at least 10,000 subdomains, and you want to find out, hey, now I want to find out all the subdomain that has admin in the page title, or admin in the subdomain, or now which has HTTP status is 200, or which is not 400 for us. Like, you want to find out something like this, right? So in this case, what happens is that we at ReNgine, we made our custom query language through which you can search a recon data at without any spending time on doing gripping or using any other tools. You can just do with natural language operators. You can combine them. You can use operators like greater than, small than. You can also do things like, hey, I want all the subdomain that has content length greater than 0. You can do that. Okay. And then a lot of people, they requested that they wanted screenshot gallery. We brought that as well. We have recon visualization, grouping or tagging of organization. Now this is very important, because when you like suppose if you're a bug bounty hunter, and one particular target doesn't have just one asset, you also have multiple of them, right? So in that case, what happens is that a very good recon framework also needs to allow you to add these assets into one organization, so that you could just scan the organization, not the target. So when you scan the organization, all the asset inside that organization can be performed into a scan. So that was something. And then after that, interesting subdomain lookup. As I said, ReNgine comes built in with interesting subdomain lookup functionality. This says you, if it finds out certain keywords like admin, dashboard, FTP, SSH, or something like this, it tells you that, hey, interesting subdomain is found. Okay. And you also have OSINT support. You have proxy support. Proxy is very, very important. I understand that, because at a lot of time when you do OSINT, proxy is very important. And also if you do not want to reveal yourself, so proxy is important. You have customizable alerts for Discord, Slack, and Telegram. The customizable alerts, because when I say customizable alerts, see, before ReNgine 1.0, what was happening was we used to send notification for pretty much everything. Now in ReNgine, beginning from ReNgine 1.0, what happens is that you also get to choose what kind of scan notification that you want to send. Probably send me the notification only when vulnerability is found. Send me the notification only when interesting subdomain is found. So those kind of things. And you also have schedulers and the target summary. I think that's pretty much tech stack. I think we use a lot of these open source tools. That's pretty much here. And now let's go back to the demo. So let's start with the demo, and then we'll see how this ReNgine works. So let's first begin with installation itself. So I'm going to do a quick installation on my VPS, and the methods for installation are pretty much similar across everywhere. It's not going to be different. So a tab, and let me share my screen. Yep. Yeah. So right now I'm in the DigitalOcean, and again I'm saying the installation steps for pretty much almost all the VPS And for your Ubuntu, must be same. If you want to find out the installation instructions for other, you can visit our documentation, which is reengine.wiki. You can go there and find out the documentation for other operating systems. But for most, the same, the way it works is the same. So it's just same, normal. I'm not going to do anything. Just create the droplet, okay? Because you need a droplet. And guys, if you want to use, yep, thank you for mentioning the range in documentation there. Yeah, one more thing, if you want to find out so if you want to make use of range in at the most, you definitely need to go for droplets, because in a local machine there are a lot of constraints, and it's pretty much difficult to difficult for your router, difficult for your computers to handle that, right? So let me do one thing. So let me see if this is done. Yep, so this one is my IP address. All you need to do is copy your IP address from here. And guys, let's try to make this a little more interactive, because since I don't have much slides and this is demo, if you have any questions, please keep asking, okay? Don't hesitate to ask the questions. So window, I'm sharing my window. Yep, so I hope you can see my screen right now here. So I'm trying to log into my SSH. Yep, that's how this is the basic installation step for almost every operating systems. Okay, so what I'm going to do is git clone. Yep, so now the first thing that you want to do is, of course, cloning the git repo, and once you do that, we have an installation cd ReNgine. And guys, remember that the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you change your env file. Changing your env file is very, very much what was the idea behind the name? The name was from Reconnaissance engine, because ReNgine has something very powerful, which is called engine itself, right? So the name ReNgine was because it's Reconnaissance and engine. So I think the middle E was removed from there, and then it became ReNgine. So that was the idea. So nano env. So here, what you need to do is that you need to do a little bit of configurations here in the DB. See, you don't have to change anything for Postgres DB user. You don't have to do anything. Make sure that you change the default password, keep something secure. And then the other stuff, I think it's pretty much, you don't have to change anything here, unless that you want to have managed database. Because a lot of people, what they want to do is that they want to have their own managed database in things like your DigitalOcean. In that case, you will have to bring down your managed database credentials here and put it down here. In that case, you might want to change your port, host, users, and DB. But if you're doing it on a local machine and VPS, and want to use your default ReNgine image, you don't have to do anything. So let me quickly change my password, and then let me stop sharing my screen. I'm going to change my password here. Give me 2 minutes. Yep. Yeah, so I'll be back to sharing my screen. Yeah, so now once you have made changes to the env file, all you have to do is launch the installation script. Again, I'm saying this installation method is, if you're running on Linux, especially Ubuntu and Kali, it works fine. If you're on Mac, and for the most of the VPS, that's the same way. And for Mac and Windows, please head over to the wiki page, and there you will find out how to install, because there you have to do a couple of installations on Docker and Docker Compose. But in case of most of the Debian based operating system, the installation script handles that. So that's it, guys. You don't have to do anything. It just says, did you make changes to the env file? You just have to say yes, and that's done. So it does the installation steps for you. So I'm going to keep it aside here, and then now we'll see the actual tool demo. If you have any questions on installation steps, please ask me right away, because I'm moving into the actual demo. That's pretty much about here. What it does right now is that it's installing the Docker here. And after that, it's going to install Docker Compose. It's going to install everything required for ReNgine to run. You do not have to worry about anything. Because ReNgine itself runs because ReNgine itself wrapped in the Docker. You don't have to worry about any dependencies, nothing at all. So right now, Docker Compose also is installed, and you see right now ReNgine installation has begun. After some point, it's going to ask you if you want to put some. You need to create the username and password for your web UI. So in that case, it's going to ask after some time once the installation is complete. So here, pretty much it's in the installation script. That's it. Because a lot of people, they ask me, how do I install? How do I install? And this is it, right? So I think I had a question somebody asked here. Um, Recently, covered Indian government mailing system has been breached. White House has also been breached. Is ReNgine updated sufficiently to handle this high capability system? I'm not sure what you mean by see, ReNgine is a recon engine. It's the point of ReNgine was never to be a complete pen testing suite, or probably your vulnerability scanner. That's never the goal. Okay, while we do the we use nuclei to perform the vulnerability scan, but the goal of ReNgine is not as a penetration tester tool, or it's not as a vulnerability scanner. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you can repeat your question, I'll be happy to answer. But it's mostly on recon. I'm not sure what it has to do with Indian government and White House. Yep. So installation script, this will continue for some time. It's going to take a couple of minutes. Let's now move into the actual tool demo. uh, I'm moving here, your window. Yeah. So can you guys see my screen? I think my screen is ultra wide. Not sure if you can see it properly. Let me zoom it. I think that way it's gonna be easy. Yeah, I think you can see now. Yeah. So by default, you'll be welcomed with this screen. Again, I'm saying you don't have to do anything setup after you run the installation script. You do not have to absolutely do anything. You just can come here and then start scanning. That's pretty much. The first thing you always want to do is, of course, the target. Okay, so you come back to the target, and here you can add the targets. So when I say target, it could be your subdomains. It also could be your a proper domain, something like gov.in. It could be something like, as you said, coverts.gov.in. It could also be a subdomain, and support for IP address is coming soon in some time. Okay, so let's try to add something here. Let's just say Tesla.com. Okay, so description is something whatever you want to keep. And this is something very exciting, guys. The HackerOne target team handle. Okay, ReNgine supports by default, it reports vulnerability to HackerOne automatically if it finds out. So as soon as it finds out the vulnerability, it's going to report to HackerOne. So if you want to report the vulnerabilities to HackerOne, you need to put your team handle here. So what exactly is team handle? So let's say, let me go back to HackerOne, and let's try to find out some program from here, and then I'll exactly tell you. Yeah, so let's try to see this Uber. Let's pick up one asset from here, and then I'll show you what exactly is that. Yeah, so it says out of scope subdomain. Let's see which is in the sub scope. I'm not sure. Let's do one thing. Let's go for the other one. Let's go for this base camp. Yep. So it says hey.com is in your scope. So let's go back here. Let's put hey.com here. And if you want to report any vulnerabilities as soon as you find, and that's completely automated to your HackerOne, you need this base camp. This is your team ID, guys. The one that you see here, the one that is highlighted in the address bar, that's your team handle. So you're going to bring it back here, keep it here as a base camp, and add target. It's that simple. So that's all about target. Now let's go back and check for the organization. Okay, see, as I said, like suppose you may have multiple targets. For one particular organization. Let's go back to Basecamp. You have all of these targets, right? So if you see, I think most of them, these are not web based, but let's see. This one is there, wall.hey.com. Okay, so let's go and add one more target. Add target. Let's add here. Let me add the base camp here. Yep, let's click on add target. Now you have two of these targets for one particular organization, which is called base camp. Let's go back here, create one organization called, let's name it anything, base camp. And then now you have to select the target. What all do you want? Hey.com, you have wall.hey.com, right? It's very simple. Now you want to make the organization here. Now there's something which is very important, which is called engine. We're going to talk about that in some time. And let's go back from here, targets. Now, once you have added your targets, it's very simple to start scanning. All you have to do is click here. You have two things here. One is a quick scan and the other one is a scheduled scan. So when you click on quick scan, it's going to scan right away, and schedule scan, it's going to scan in the future. Let's click on schedule scan for now. You have option for periodic scan and clocked scan. So periodic scan is going to be like, hey, I want to scan this particular target every 30 minutes, every 1 hour, right? And for clocked scan, it's like, hey, I want to run the scan exactly in the future, 2021 August 31st midnight. So that's clocked scan. So let's choose here periodic scan, and then you can choose what all you want to perform. When all do you want to perform? Probably in minutes, hours, days, a week. So let's consider you want to perform run the scan every once in a week. You can very well do that. Now click on next. Now these scan engines are what makes ReNgine awesome. Okay, so it's asking you what scan engines to choose. Now when I say engine, it's the combination of settings and combination of tool which allows you to perform the recon. Let's go on engine and click on scan engines before I actually perform the scan. So here in the scan engines, you can click. By the way, ReNgine comes with probably around 5 or 6 of the default scans. Okay, 5 or 6 of the default scans. So when you click on add engine, you can name whatever you want. Let's say OWASP Chandigarh. So now here you have to choose what all things do you want your scan engine to perform. Do you want only subdomain discovery? You also want to gather screenshots? Do you want to perform OSINT or not? Do you want to perform port scan? Suppose if you want to perform directory and file search, you could click here. If you want to gather the endpoints, you can click here. And similarly for a vulnerability scanner as well. So let's do one more, which one of them which only does subdomain discovery and which gathers the screenshot. That's it. Okay, and now if you come down here, which is what makes ReNgine more powerful, that's the YAML documentation. So here what happens is that you get to choose YAML configuration. You get to choose what kind of tools do you want to use. Suppose if you see there is an object here called subdomain discovery, and which also has users tools. So here in the users tools, you can choose what all tools do you want to use. And now, of course, you cannot use every other tools, but if you go to our documentation and click on how to use ReNgine, and there is something called scan engines, you can find out what are the supported options. So right now ReNgine supports your MS passive, MS active, your subfinder, sublister, asset finder, and one for all. These all are the tools that are supported for your subdomain discovery. So you can use a combination of tools. You can use single, you can use multiple of them, right? And you also have threads. Now play around with these settings depending on where you are running. So if you have a really powerful VPS, just go with more threads. If you're running on a local machine, probably you might want to decrease down the threads. That's here. And use MS config. This is, I'm going to come back here later. Visual identification. This is for taking your screenshots. Suppose timeout is the setting. Suppose for 10 seconds, if your website doesn't respond, it's not going to take screenshots. And for screenshots, we're using eyewitness. And now again, threads for your visual identification as well. So how many threads do you want to run? That's something here. And if you come back to OSINT, ReNgine right now is able to perform email discovery, your meta info, your employees. Now, once it does the email discovery, it automatically goes to the PON database and then finds out the leaked passwords as well. Okay. And then now intensity, you also get to define the intensity here. When I say intensity, when you say intensity deep, that means you want to perform OSINT not only on the main target like google.com, you also want to perform OSINT on admin.google.com. You also want to perform OSINT on pay.google.com. So for those subdomains also, that's intensity deep. Okay. And the other thing is darking. Yes, ReNgine also supports darking. You get to dark these things by default. And I think within next a couple of weeks, you also will get ReNgine 1.1, which is going to have support for your custom darks as well. So you can write your own dark here and put it. ReNgine is going to do that for you. So that's something on the OSINT. And let's talk about port scan again. Whatever port scan do you want to perform? Let's do only top 100. And again, I'm saying, guys, if you do not know what you're doing here, please make sure that you check out your documentation. It's very well defined here. What all options are supported, what is not supported, everything is given here. Okay, so let's do only top 100. Again, the rate is same. Nabu config. Yep, this will come back again. If you want to exclude the ports, we also have an option for that. Suppose you don't want one particular target to be scanned for port number 80 and 8080. So you can define those ports here. Let's go back to directory and file search. You can define all your extensions here. What all extension do you want to search? PSP, .git, .yaml, .conf. So these are by default. It comes by default. Remember, the more extension you have here, and the more subdomains you have, remember that's multiplied, right? When it does the brute force, so it's going to take a long time. So put all the extensions which are only useful for you. Okay. And threads is again the same thing. Recursive, when I say false here, suppose if it has found out one particular directory called dashboard. Now do you want to perform the directory search inside the dashboard or not? So if you want, that's recursive true. If you don't want, that's recursive false. And recursive level is 1. Word list is again here is default. I'm going to tell you how to use your custom word list as well. Similarly, now you also have an option for fetching the URLs. By default, it supports your Go Plus, your Hack Roller, your Wayback URLs in a Go Spider. And intensity again here is normal. You have an option for deep intensity, that's gathering all the URL for your subdomains as well. So if you do deep intensity, guys, it's going to take a long time. So be aware of that. Beginning range in 1.0, we also have an option for ignore file extension, because a lot of times you don't want .jpeg, .png, .gif files. You don't want these things, right? So you have an option to ignore the file extensions as well here. And you also have GF patterns. Hemant, can you please turn off your microphone? Yeah. So now we have this GF patterns as well. Beginning range in 1.0, we also support GF patterns, because now when you have a lot of these endpoints, what are you going to do with that? So the thing is that we run GF patterns on top of that. Whatever you choose here, we also have an option for uploading your custom GF patterns. If you have a custom, just upload it via the UI. And then the vulnerability scan is again the same. You can choose what severity you want to look for. If you only want critical severity, if you only want high severity, just make sure that you make changes around it. And let's click on add engine. So we have now added one engine, which is called OWASP Chandigarh. And now let's go back to our target and let's see this hey.com. Okay. So when I click on hey.com, it's very simple. This is a quick scan. You get to choose what scan engine now you want to perform. Now see guys, one engine, you can use it with many, you can have a lot of this configuration. Just imagine you made one for your active scan, one for your passive scan, one that only does your vulnerability scan. So define it accordingly, whatever you want or whatever your targets want you to define. Okay. And then when you click on OWASP Chandigarh, you get to see what it actually does. It does subdomain discovery and it only gathers the screenshots. Now let's click on next here. And then now this is something interesting. A lot of people, they requested this feature in ReNgine, that they have their own recon tool, they have their own subdomain discovery stuff, and they want to import it in ReNgine. See, no any recon tool is a complete recon tool without without exchanging the information, right, from one tool to other tool, without importing and exporting features. So what ReNgine does is that you also get to import the subdomains if you have from some other places. Let's just do OWASP.hey.com. So this is, imagine this is the subdomain that we have already found out through your private recon tools. So you can bring down here, just make sure that you separate them with new lines, and then let's just write admin.hey.com. So you can just come and paste it here. That's for importing subdomains if you already have. Now, out of scope subdomains is also very important, because let's go back to this Basecamp. You might also find out a couple of these in the out of scope. Like suppose basecamp.com is not in the scope, right? But we don't have a basecamp.com as a target. Suppose if there's subdomain which is inside the hey.com and is not in your out of scope, you can very well define here. Just write yogesh.hey.com. So now this subdomain, once it encounters, it's gonna just ignore. No any directory brute force, no endpoints gathering, nothing is going to happen on this yogesh.hey.com, because this is very important to have your out of scope. So now let's click here and let's click on start scan. It was that simple. So now your scan is right now in progress. Okay. So now the other part is that when you come to scan history here, as I said, you guys, once let's go back to organization. Now remember, we only scanned your one particular target. You also get to scan the entire organization. If you remember earlier, we had two targets for this Basecamp. One was world.hey.com and the other was hey.com. These were two of the targets that we got from HackerOne, right, from here. Now the thing is that, what if you wanted to scan the entire hey.com, the entire asset inside the Basecamp? It's very simple. You go to the organization, since we have already tagged them here. You can edit here. Let's just say you want your HackerOne also. It's very simple. Just add a targets here and click on this quick scan entire organization. That means it's going to scan all the asset that belongs to the Basecamp. This was one of the most requested feature, and it's super helpful, because just imagine your one target is going to have multiple of this asset in scope. In that case, just go to targets, define multiple of them. And by the way, I forgot to tell you that you also have an option to add the targets. You go to them, add multiple targets. just make sure that you separate with the new line. You also get to add your targets from here. Let's take one big targets. Let's do, let me do one. Let's do this. Yep, let's see if they have some wildcard targets. Okay, they don't have it. Let's not spend time here. Let's just do tesla.com, and then let's just do spacex.com. Let's just do nasa.gov. So you can add a multiple targets also here, separated with new lines, and then just click and add 3 target. It's going to add all of these 3 targets. Now these, as I said, if you want to tag them to an organization, it's very simple. Let's just say bug bounty is our organization. Let's just say Elon Musk is our organization, and then let's define all the targets that belong to this, your Tesla, your SpaceX, and nasa.gov, right? So let's click on here, add organization. Now, when you click on this Elon Musk as an organization and click on OWASP Chandigarh and click on start scan, it's going to scan for the entire